Hi there, and welcome to a short video where I'll be comparing Mixpanel and Woopra. If you know who I am, my name is Ruben, and I'm the founder of Practical Analytics. And we work with a lot of software companies and help them set up a stack of tools to analyze marketing and product usage. So typically, we'll see a lot of options like Segment and Mixpanel, Amplitude, Google Analytics, Intercom, and so on. Now, Woopra is a tool that has come up in previous conversations. There seems to be some comparisons between Woopra and Mixpanel primarily. And it's not a tool that we have used a lot in past projects, but we have seen it. So for this video, I decided to spend some time importing some data to Woopra, going around it, playing around it, and seeing just what its strengths are, some of its weaknesses are. And of course, I know Mixpanel quite well. We've done quite a few projects with Mixpanel, so we understand where Mixpanel lies in terms of strengths and weaknesses, and we'll be able to compare both of them. Now, if you're not familiar with Mixpanel, I'll give you a quick overview. Really, the bulk of Mixpanel is the analysis, the analytics reports. We can take event data like events, event properties, user attributes, segment them with a report like insights. Kind of looks like this one here, right? We can take an event like I don't know, let's say like a subscription purchase event, and then we could break this down by something like city, right? Things like that, right? So we take our event data, we analyze it, we segment it, we slice it. This is really a really core feature of Mixpanel. We also have things like funnels, so you have a series of steps, and you can see where users are dropping off. Retention, this will be a cohort analysis report. Flows, which is more of an enterprise feature, but you see the different paths the users are taking to a certain conversion, right? We can see here user data, create cohorts, and one of the main things that also differentiates Mixpanel is the ability to send messages. So based on your existing data, you can send a message, whether it's an email notification, SMS, push, something else. So you could say every time someone fires this subscription purchase event, send them an email with the next step, as an example, right? People use those messages to tackle things like onboarding issues or guide users to the product, right? And then we have some data governance, data management here. This is really, what Mixpanel is known for. They do a lot of work with mobile apps, SaaS products, software companies. I know I have some media companies, a little bit e-commerce, really on the product and marketing side by far and large. Right? Then we have Woopra. So Woopra, as an overview here, we have dashboards. We can also look at individual people, just like in Mixpanel, right? We don't have to look at anonymous data. We can look at an individual user by their name, by their email. Then we have the analysis reports, the analytics reports, the equivalent that we just saw in Mixpanel. And in here we have 4 reports. We have trends, which is very similar to that insights report in Mixpanel. So if we open this one, we're able to take an event. We actually go find the exact same event. That's a subscription purchase. And do some kind of interval, daily, weekly, hourly. Let's say weekly, or let's actually say daily. We don't have that much data here. And then we get breakdown how many times that happened, how many people did it, how many visits, how many actions. This will be events, and then a breakdown based on days. You can see I only have a couple of days worth of data here inside Woopra, right? We have journeys, which is really interesting. So a journey report, we can take different actions. It functions a little bit like a funnel report in the Mixpanel world, but it can also give you possibilities of paths. So it really is a mix of the funnels report and the flows report that Mixpanel offers. Either way, we can take a starting action here, whether it's a specific event or maybe any action, right? And then we can then figure out whatever the next step is, whether it's a specific event or any other action, right? So we can do a lot of filtering here and kind of reorder steps just like in a funnel would, right? And then we can get some data here, how many people did each step, the conversion rate, the drop off, and so on, right? And then if we actually click in any of the steps here, this is sort of step 1, step 2, we can actually see the individual users within the paid plan, which we'll talk a little bit about pricing. But we can actually see the actual users down here if you can see their names are kind of popping up, right? Then we have cohorts, which is the cohort analysis report in Mixpanel, and retention. Actually, I do have a retention report here. I can show. This is the one I want. Again, very, very broad retention report. Any action into any action. and we can sort of see the breakdown on, this seems to be a weekly basis, a weekly report. Yeah, weeks later, right? That would be a time unit. So really the core Mixpanel analytics reports are really covered here in Woopra as well. So the ability to segment the data, the trends, have some kind of funnel, flow report, journeys, cohorts and retention covers the cohort analysis. So in that area, they're actually quite similar, right? Then an area where Woopra shines is really in the integrations world, right? They have what they call the triggers, and they can really, based on your data, you can trigger things. So this could be, for example, we can trigger here based on all people. Same thing. We'll go take the same event, subscription. I think it was purchase event. We'll take that one. So whenever that fires, once per visit, once per visitor, whatever that is, or always, right? We can do some kind of action, right? And we can do email notifications, not to users, but to your actual team, your internal team. You can actually integrate a lot of different options here, which I'll show you. If we look at integrations, this is actually probably one of the coolest things that I think Woopra offers, probably really the most useful thing. You can integrate with a lot of tools out there in common marketing stacks, right? You see Drift, HubSpot, Salesforce, email marketing tools like ActiveCampaign, MailChimp, help desk software, CRMs, right? Advertising data, more messaging options, Slack. So really, whenever something happens like an event, you could say, for example, take ActiveCampaign, which is an email marketing tool. This lets you, remove or add users to specific lists, add them to specific automations, add tags, and you can actually pull data from ActiveCampaign as well. So that's where it really starts to get really interesting, because you can start to get a unified look at what a user has done, not in just one tool, but in all your tools. So you can say, hey, we have this user, John Smith. Here's their activity from ActiveCampaign. Here's their activity from Salesforce. Here's their activity from Zendesk, all in one single place, right? And based on all the data, you can then trigger other things. So even though you can't send notifications internally from Woopra out of the box like you can in Mixpanel right here, this lets you send messages out of the box, you are able to do it by some kind of integration, whether it's an email marketing tool and so on, right? So let me go back. So really, when I look at both tools, I see a lot of overlap in between them, right? I could see Woopra being a really strong fit, especially for teams that have an existing stack, like most companies do, and they really want to look at the entire stack as a whole. So they really want to see all the activity across Salesforce and Zendesk and email marketing tools and so on in one place, and be able to then analyze the data, segment it, go through it. Mixpanel gets the edge a little bit when it comes to analytics. There's a few reports that Woopra doesn't have, things like Signal, Predict, some of the more machine learning reports where you start to do more advanced analysis. Most companies, especially when starting out, do not use these reports, and they're really mostly geared for product companies. So if you're a marketing team and you already have tools used, for emails and so on, Woopra can be a great fit, because you can get a lot of that initial analysis or that baseline analysis, funnels, trends, journeys, all that kind of thing, and be able to sync up your data, right? Be able to sync up all your user data in one place. Now, one challenge that always comes when you start to identify users, typically, when we identify a user, we'll use some kind of user ID. And whenever we implement something like Mixpanel, we like to use an internal generated ID, like a database ID. That tends to be quite permanent, doesn't change often. Woopra, on the other hand, supports that, but they actually recommend to use emails as IDs. The issue with emails is your email might change. Doesn't change very often, but it might change. However, to be able to properly integrate with things like HubSpot and ActiveCampaign and all the cool things that we saw, you need to use email, because that's actually what Woopra will use to unify profiles across multiple tools. It will just simply say, hey, here's John Smith, here's their gmail.com, and this is the same user. Let's merge all these profiles, and it'll do it automatically for you. It'll actually be quite seamless once you get that set up. Right. Now, the other thing we have to look at is a little bit of pricing, right? So here's the Mixpanel pricing. right now they charge on two plans. They charge for events, and they charge for profiles for actual users. So typically, companies when starting out, they'll be put on the growth plan, which is 150 a month. I want to say choose a monthly plan. 150 a month gives you 1 million data points per month as a reference point, and then they'll take a people plan, a user profile plan, also 150 a month, and that's 50,000 profiles, right? So you're talking about 300 a month times 12. You're talking about a few $1,000s a year to start using Mixpanel, really get the most capabilities. They do have a free plan. It is quite limited in a lot of interesting ways. So we really typically always start at that. That's really the baseline level that we want to start with Mixpanel. Woopra, on the other hand, let's go look at the pricing. They also have a free plan. 500,000 actions. This will be the equivalent of events, right? They don't limit actually by profiles, but they do have some limits around how many integrations they have. Some of the triggers or the two-way sync. A lot of things are not included in the free plan. Some more advanced ways of segmenting data are also not included, and also really clear the pro plan. So if we really compare the pro plan to that Mixpanel starting point, this is a little bit more, maybe about 3 times more than the initial plan that we saw. Though you do get more actions, right? So Woopra, you might be starting out a little higher than you might, especially if you don't need 5 million actions per month or 5 million events, right? And Mixpanel. But you do get access to really the bulk of what we saw, right? Or the integrations, the advanced analytics reports, data retention, and so on, right? So, to summarize this, I find Woopra really quite interesting as a unified place to look at everything that's happened with the customer data, and would likely recommend a lot to marketing teams that have a lot going on and want this unified dashboard, unified place to look at their customers and their actions and take actions from there. So be this hub that you bring your data together, and in a hub where you send stuff out. So you do sort of the triggers to start other things within your tools. Mixpanel, of course, is still great especially for product teams, software teams, teams that want to send messages right away and without having to use an external system. This would be quite great, right? If you want to do things like push notifications, SMS, you get this built in. So that tends to be a really big differentiator factor when choosing Mixpanel. If you don't need that, then something like Woopra can actually be a better choice, as it will tie quite nicely with a lot of your existing tools in your stack. Perfect. If you have any questions, post them in the comment below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you.